Now that we looked at all the cell organelles that can be present in an animal cell in more detail, it is now time to move on to all the organelles and the extra organelles that you will find in a typical plant cell. Before I actually talk about the organelles in more detail, I'm going to draw a rough sketch of a plant cell. A very rough one because you already know the structure, but it's best to start off with a diagram. Now, why am I using straight lines? Do you remember, whenever I drew an animal cell, I didn't use a single straight line. If we can go back, do you see? It's rugged, it's all over the place, it's not uniform. So why am I getting uniform all of a sudden? We know biology is not uniform, right? Now, it is not this uniform, but this is to give you the key idea that a plant cell is more uniformly shaped than an animal cell. Meaning, you see, here it has a basically better structure than the animal cell. Basically better in the sense it has a more prevalent shape. It's basically rectangular, if you will. And of course, it's going to have all the typical organelles, starting off from the nucleus. And then we've got mitochondria. And we have something interesting about this size, about yay size. They're pretty large, not just one, there's a lot. And these are the most important things in a plant. I wouldn't say the most important things, but one of the most important things. We'll talk about those things in detail. A little bit of labeling, if you will. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is not the cell membrane. This is. That's your cell membrane. Then what exactly is this? That would be your cell wall. A new structure. Not a new structure, but we'll talk about that in more detail. We've got our typical nucleus. Let me use a different color for that. That is your nucleus. Mitochondria, MIT dot, and these guys. They are chloroplasts. Any sixth grader is simply able to identify that they are actually chloroplasts. Okay, I think I'm a sixth grader because I almost messed up saying the word chloroplast. Going into chloroplasts in more detail, this is a basic structure. We have typical other things as well. We'll discuss about that in more detail. But I just want to stitch up on chloroplasts first of all. Let me pick a good color. Think that should work. Yeah, that's cool. Chloroplast. Now here's the deal. We're going to talk about all the structures that are official to the plant cell. Meaning we're going to talk about all the structures that are only present in the plant cell. Here, when it came to the animal cell, we talked about everything, all the things that are going to be present in an animal cell. Note, we did not talk about chloroplasts under animal cells. Why? Animal cells don't have chloroplasts. They do not photosynthesize. We're not that powerful yet. If at any point, if you decide to grow up and do a certain research, try embedding chloroplasts into your human cells, if you will. You know what? I'm going to write that down. Give me a second. It's a pretty good idea. Embed chloroplasts to your cell. Okay. Guinea pig is me, test subject also me. Moving forward, let's talk about chloroplasts. I'm going to write down the term chloroplasts. Scroll down a bit. Too much. Just right. Chloroplasts. I'll give you the basic size of a chloroplast. Chloroplasts, you can clearly see, I have drawn them bigger than the nucleus. Is that a hand-drawn error? It's not. It's the truth. Chloroplasts are basically 10 micrometers in size. They're pretty large. They are pretty large. I'm not going to draw too much detail when it comes to chloroplasts because you don't really want that much detail when it comes to chloroplasts at AS level. Actually speaking, inside chloroplasts you have these stacks of things, and then you have more stacks of things, and those stacks of things are connected by something like this. There's a lot. You don't want any of that for AS level, so I'm just going to roughly draw a circular structure, and yeah, let's call it chloroplasts. The first important thing I'm going to talk about chloroplasts is that chloroplasts are found in mainly palisade mesophyll cells. Now, chloroplasts are mainly found in plants, we agree, producers, but inside the plant kingdom, under their cells, they are found mostly in the palisade, mesenchymal, or the mesophyll cells. Spongy mesophyll cells then, spongy mesophyll cells, and this is going to be an interesting one. They are also found in guard cells. They are also found in guard cells. Note that chloroplasts are double membrane. My handwriting will get better. I just need a little bit of warming up. That's the thing. These are double membraned structures. It's a double membrane structure. And what about ribosomes? They contain 70 S prokaryotic ribosomes. Remember mitochondria? They're very similar to mitochondria. They're almost like their own little organism. So they contain 70 Swedberg unital ribosomes, and of course circular DNA, a little bit of circular DNA. Plus they have something interesting. I'm going to use red color for that. It's not really red, but they have starch grains. You know, plants really store things in the form of starch, store carbohydrates in the form of starch. Us humans do it as glycogen. Plants do it as starch. So therefore, inside chloroplasts, you will find a lot of starch. Okay. Inside them, now remember how I told you we have these little things that look like this and connected to other little things like this. We call them thylakoids. So you can say that chloroplasts contain flattened sacs. Flattened sacs known as thylakoids. Which contain chlorophyll. This is where we have what we need. This is what we need. We want the chlorophyll pigment. Actually, even inside a chloroplast, only on the thylakoids will we find our chlorophyll pigment. Now, this is one thylakoid. Okay? If you have multiple thylakoids like this, we call them a special name. Now, thylakoids, they can stack on top of each other like this. Each other to form something known as grain. And these grana are linked by lamella. Now that's a little bit of too much detail. I think that's juxtaposition a little bit of too much. Never mind. So I'm going to give you a rough idea of the structure, otherwise it's not going to make sense. I know I said I'm not going to, but I think I have to. Thylakoid. Multiple thylakoids. You call it a grana. So we have more granas all around. Granas are linked by something known as the lamella. Thylakoid. All of them together is known as grana, and that is your lamella. That's your lamella. Those are all the points. Made sense. What's the next exclusive structure you find in a plant cell, that would be the cellular wall, or the cell wall for short. Let's talk about the cell wall and see what it does. The size of the cell wall is around 10 nanometers, like so. Plant cell walls are composed of cellulose. You know this, you remember this. We'll talk about the structure, we'll learn about the structure of cellulose in a lot more detail under biological molecules. You'll see why it's so strong, you'll see why plants love cellulose a lot. Until then, all you have to know is plant cell walls contain cellulose fibers. Why do they have cellulose? Why do they have cell walls? That is for mechanical support. And having a cell wall, if you remember, will prevent the cell from bursting due to osmosis. Now, when we talked about the cellular membrane, let's go back all the way to the cell membrane. We specifically mentioned how it is only a partially permeable membrane. The cell surface membrane is only a partially permeable membrane. Remember, but the cell wall is not partially permeable. It's completely permeable. It is a fully permeable membrane. Cell wall is a fully permeable membrane. The cell wall does not care what comes through, what goes away. It's just going to allow anything to go through. The third exclusive structure when it comes to the plant cell wall, not the plant cell wall, the plant cell, would be the vacuole. If this is your vacuole, this is your vacuole membrane. This vacuole membrane actually has a specific name. We call it the tonoplast. We call it the tonoplast. Tonoplast. So the vacuole is surrounded by a tonoplast. That's the way I pronounce it. Simply a membrane. Nothing fancy. Simply a membrane. And the vacuole regulates osmotic properties. Osmotic properties of the cell. Osmotic properties of the cell mainly because it's having all the salts, therefore it can maintain water potential or destroy it, therefore maintain the osmotic properties of cell. Typically when the tonoplast ruptures, meaning when the tonoplast breaks and the contents leak, that cell usually loses its osmotic properties and most probably it's going to undergo apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. You don't want any of that. A small thing to remember is this. P-E-S-O-M-O-C. Pesomok. Pesomok. What in the world am I talking about? Sometimes when it comes to your theory questions like to ask you something like this. Name 5 or name 6, list 6 structures, solvents, solutes, and minerals present in the plant vacuole. In that case, you can say that we have pesomok. 1, we have pigments, then we have enzymes, then we have starch, pigments, enzymes, starch. O would be for organic molecules. It can be anything. What about M? We're talking about minerals, sodium, potassium, all that stuff. O is for oxygen and the final C is for carbon dioxide. Constituents of a vacuole, pesomok. Very simple, very straightforward. Switching back to my original color. Yeah, my hand is warming up a little bit, so you're gonna get my handwriting back. We'll talk about something you're possibly going to hear for the first time. and that is plasmodesmata. I'll define plasmodesmata like this. Plasmodesmata are hole-like structures. It's almost like a hole. Hole-like structures specifically found in cell walls that allow links between the cytoplasms of neighboring cells. That is what plasmodesmata are. The most important thing is you have to visualize this properly. To do that, please follow through with this diagram where I draw two cells basically. So that's one cell, that's another cell. Oops. I am possibly the worst cell drawer. Okay, so one cell there, that's your second cell, and that is the next one. I do not know why the shift key is not working. Okay, that's okay. Right. So you can clearly see this distinction, right? While they would be like this, there's this small gap here. There's this small gap here between these things. Okay? There's this gap. Here, we typically refer to this place as having fine strands of cytoplasm. Fine strands of cytoplasm, and that is what our actual plasmodesmata are. Links between cells, no, cell 1, cell 2, and that's the link between these cells. We simply have fine strands of cytoplasm. We call them plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata is actually the plural form. If it was singular, we can call them plasmodesma. There's this little controversy between calling it plasmodesma and plasmodesmata, but it's not that important. Every time you see a question, it's going to be plasmodesmata. Under this, I would like to talk about two pathways in which cells can transport substances as well. We will talk about this in a lot more detail, but for now, I'm going to tell you two routes in which cells can transport things. The first route is known as the apoplastic pathway, where things can flow. For example, water. Water can flow through the apoplastic pathway or the symplastic pathway or the symplastic pathway. The apoplastic pathway is always going to be through the cell wall and cell wall only. So I'm going to write it like this: through the cell wall and cell wall only. What does that look like? That looks something like this. So water is coming this way, and from cell to cell, it goes through the cellular wall. Simply the cell wall. When it comes to the symplastic pathway, things go through the cytoplasm. That is through the cytoplasm, like so. See? Oops, I just destroyed it. Okay. That is your symplastic pathway. You don't have to go into that much detail yet. Under transport, under plants, we will be talking about the apoplastic and symplastic pathway in a lot more detail. For now, that basically does it. To recap, plant cells contain basically most of the animal cell organelles as well, the nucleus, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and everything. I don't think I marked the cytoplasm here. That is something I always forget. Cytoplasm. And apart from those structures, they contain more interesting structures, for example, chloroplasts, cellular walls, vacuoles, and the most newest thing, plasmodesmata.